Level 7 will introduce your first two chords, E minor and A minor, to your practice routine. And what you're looking at are the diagrams to both of these chords. It's important to get to know these types of diagrams as you'll be using them here on the website as well as other online resources and books. Now what you're looking at is a representation of all 6 strings and the first 4 frets on your guitar. Now hopefully you know the names of your strings. If not, here's a quick review. E, A, D, G, B, E. And you can see those strings with the lines going this way. So that line represents your big E string, your 5A string, 4D, 3G, 2B, and the little first E string. The horizontal lines on this diagram represent the physical frets on your guitar. Those are the metal pieces running opposite of the strings. Now we don't play on top of the fret because you'll get a buzz. So you play between the frets or just behind the fret that is mentioned. So when someone says play the first fret, you play behind the first fret in this area right here. And this area here is all the second fret. This would be considered the 3rd fret, and this here is the 4th fret. The area highlighted in green is called the nut, and when you play behind it, you're playing an open string. In other words, you don't have to push the note to get sound. And so these dark circles represent open strings. So with this E minor chord, you don't have to push anything on the E string. You just play the string and let it ring by itself. And the same thing with strings G, B, and E. You could call it the 0 fret because you're not having to push any of the notes. Now when you see an X here behind the nut, that means that you don't play the string. So you don't want sound coming from that string. The numbered circles on the fretboard represent the pushed notes. The numbers represent the fingers on your hand. So if you look at my hand, here's finger 1, 2, 3, 4. You probably remember those from your scale practice. So what's happening here is you're using your second finger on the A string on the 2nd fret. All this area here is the 2nd fret. So you just count 1, 2, and push that note. And while you're holding that note, you're going to use your 3rd finger to play the 2nd fret on the D string. So you go to your string D, you count 1, 2, and that is the note that you push. So you combine these 2 notes here along with your open strings, and you strum across all the strings, and you're going to get an E minor chord. And that's your E minor chord from the live point of view. And if you look at your chart, we have a dark circle behind the nut, and that tells you to play the big E string without pushing any of the notes. It's a non-fretted note. We call it open. On the A string, we have a dark circle with a number 2 telling us to play the 2nd fret with the 2nd finger. On the D string, we have a dark circle with a number 3 telling us to play the 2nd fret with the 3rd finger. So those are your only 2 fretted notes. The remainder of the strings, G, B, and E, have dark circles behind the nut. And that means to play the strings without pushing them. They're all open strings. So once again, we have fretted notes on the A and D string, and then you want to check all your notes one by one for clarity. And if you're not getting clarity, it could have something to do with your technique. So you need to watch the video below where we talk about the importance of playing on the fingertips and close to the frets. Now the good news is once you've learned how to read one diagram, all that information translates to any other chord that you want to learn. So when we get to the A minor chord, I want you to remember that the E string is closed, so you do not play that string. The A string is open, so you do play the string, but you don't push any of the frets. When you get to string D, you're going to use your 2nd finger on the 2nd fret of that string. So you just count 1, 2, and you push that fret. String G, we're going to use the 3rd finger to play the 1, 2. That's also the 2nd fret. And then on string B, we're going to use our 1st finger to play the 1st fret. And then finally, the E string is open. You don't have to push any of the notes, but you do play that string. So you put all this together and you strum from the A string all the way down to the little E string, and you have your A minor chord. This is your A minor chord from the live point of view. And if you get out your chord diagram, you'll first notice we have an X behind the nut of the big E string. And that means that the string is closed. We do not play it. We do have a circle behind the nut of the A string, and that means the string is open. So we do play the string without pushing any of the frets. String D is a fretted note, and you can see that on the chart with a number 2 in the circle at the 2nd fret. So you use your 2nd finger at the 1, 2, the 2nd fret. And while holding that note, you're going to use your 3rd finger on string G at the 2nd fret also. And you can see that with the dark circle with the number 3. The numbers tell us the fingers. On string B, we use our 1st finger at the 1st fret, and you can see that with a dark circle with a number 1. So we just count 1 and we push that note. So we have fingers 2, 3, and 1 on strings D, G, and B. And then we have another open string on the little E string, and that just means that you play the string without pushing any of the notes. So you make your chord and you check all your notes one at a time. And you're listening for clarity. If you're not getting clarity, then you want to review the video below where we talk about the importance of playing close to the frets and on the fingertips.